Business owners, you love what you do, and you work hard making your business a success. But let's face it, every company has tasks that take up your valuable time and are boring. Intriate is an international company that can take care of the boring, monotonous tasks for you and your clients. Intriate covers the entire world, the United States, Germany, Austria, Dubai, the United Kingdom, and Canada. Their main service is data entry, which covers basically any work which requires inserting data, like copying information from photos and writing them to a database, listing e-commerce products, and that's just the beginning of what they do. Every business is faced with different, monotonous, and boring tasks. Let Intriate take the boring jobs from your business, entities, and clients and handle them for you. What are you waiting for? Take your company to the next level. Contact Intriate online at intriate.org and learn how they can help you and your company. Intriate.org.
You are listening to The Brian Craig Show podcast, broadcasting from sunny South Florida. Brian is joined by his wife and co-host, Kathy. Follow Brian on social media at BrianCraigShow.com. And now, Brian and Kathy.
Welcome to the program, everyone. I'm Brian Craig, always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. Welcome to the program, everyone. I'll make a quick announcement to our Patreon supporters. On Saturday, I uploaded the wrong edition of the podcast to the Patreon page. You know, Patreon supporters get commercial-free editions of each and every podcast episode. And on Saturday, we had a podcast, and I uploaded the commercial version, not the commercial-free version.
Yes.
So, and I just found out about this, actually, just a few minutes ago, and I uploaded on Patreon Saturday's podcast, commercial free, is up there today, and it's, for Monday afternoon I put it up there. So sorry, guys, our Patreon supporters, but thanks for reaching out and letting me know. Otherwise, I would not have known if you all did not tell me. Okay, so the Russian-Ukraine war continues, and, it's creating a lot of division in this country. And, I'm going to play a clip here in just a bit that we're going to talk about from MSNBC of what the liberals are trying to do. There's a conservative MAGA position in this country involving the Russian-Ukraine war, and that we're neutral. I mean, that's just it. We're neutral. But both the invasion of Ukraine is wrong, but Ukraine is not our ally. It's not our fight. And this is an internal issue between these two countries. That's the conservative MAGA position.
Tell that to Sean Hannity.
Well, Sean Hannity,
him and Tucker feel differently.
Well, they're not MAGA. But what's going on with the left is anyone who says they're opposed to us getting involved in another major war with a major power, Russia, they want to brand you a Putin supporter, a Putin apologist. None of that is true. But that's what the left are all about, labeling people, identity politics.
That's true.
This is an exchange that took place on MSNBC that kind of illustrates what we're talking about. Let's play this, and we'll talk about it as we go.
Things going on in the GOP. First of all, with people like McGregor and others, you have to understand that there are a group of right-wing Republicans who really think of Putin as this kind of white Christian savior of civilization with whom we could make some sort of, we could link arms and make some sort of common defense against the Islamic world and against the encroachment of left-wing civilization, of, the drag queens and the gays and the, vegans and spelling reformers and all the other boogeymen of the American right. That's different from the GOP electeds who are drifting back and forth and trying to find some place to land on this issue because they are fundamentally unserious people. They don't care about foreign policy. They don't care about the defense of Europe. They don't care really about anything except their own careers. So what you're seeing is a bunch of cranks and crackpots on one side and a bunch of utterly hollow opportunists on the other. And the Republican Party, as the vessel of any kind of coherent foreign policy ideology, or really as a coherent vessel of any kind of political ideology, other than this kind of general, white resentment that gravitates toward people like Putin is really dead. And so, it's not, there is a crack up in the Republican Party, but again, it's kind of kooks on one side and opportunists on the other. And the net result is that Putin really can count on a very divided America and has been able to count on a divided America for the kind of reasons Molly was just talking about.
Okay. Now, first of all, there's no racial component here. Everybody on both sides are white. Right, the Ukrainians and the Russians. Okay,
well, that's how Whoopi Goldberg feels.
Yeah, so there's no racial component here, but here's what's going on. It's painful to say this, but we just lost a 20-year war to the Taliban, and the Taliban, they're very modern today because they have all that new equipment that Biden left behind. The new Blackhawks and all that. But these are guys out of like the 1800s. They get around on horseback. They don't even wear shoes, right? And they beat us after 20 years. The Taliban. And we were kind enough to rebuild the whole country for them. And every member of the military. Think about this: when the war ended in Afghanistan, when Biden pulled us out, there were men and women in the service in Afghanistan that were pulled out that were born after 9/11. So everyone, pretty much. I know there's some exceptions to this, but pretty much everyone who's been in the military for the last 20 years has done multiple tours in combat zones. And Americans are tired of this nation-building thing that does not work. And I'm very sorry for the people in Ukraine. It's terrible. I feel very bad for them. The civilians are not corrupt. We have a corrupt government. We're not corrupt. So it's not their fault. It's a fight between countries as always. But MAGA conservatives just don't think we should be involved in another war. Now, what's going on with some lunatics like Sean Hannity, who's just nuts, and
Lindsey Graham.
Yeah, Lindsey Graham. Sean Hannity said the other day that NATO should bomb the Russian military convoy in Ukraine. Now, that's a brilliant thing. He's pushing us into a war, and the corporate media, Fox News, is really pushing us into a conflict. And I've talked a lot about this, about how there's a lot of...
Well, then how can he sit there and... he was very confusing to me.
This guy or Hannity?
So how can he sit there...
Who's he?
This guy that was talking.
Oh, from MSNBC.
If you have a whole network that they affiliate with conservatives that is saying, attack Putin...
That's Fox.
Then where the hell does his opinion come from? He's saying that most conservatives like Putin and are on Putin's side. Well, then how does he explain Fox News? If the entire network, which leans to the right, which they keep telling you it's a conservative network, if they're pushing a war, then where the hell does his thinking come from? Now, listen, this is the deal. Everybody has their own opinion. We don't all share brains. And if you're on the left, you don't have to think exactly like everybody on the left. And if you're on the right, you don't have to think exactly like everybody on the right. You can think for yourself. And just because you might deviate from the masses on the right or the left doesn't make you a traitor or a turncoat. It just makes you a free-thinking person. Yeah. So you can always find somebody who thinks a certain way about something, but for him to label all conservatives, I know he said there's two groups. There's opportunists, whatever that means. If anybody's an opportunist, it's Biden. I mean, he's the one who's making deals with the Ukraine and got all that Burisma money. So who the hell on the right is making those kind of deals? Who the hell is an opportunist? And they're the ones talking about now turning everything to green because the gas prices are so high. They're opportunists. So I don't know who on the right is an opportunist, or he says they're opportunists or kooks. Yeah. So in his mind, the kooks see Putin as a savior of the white Aryan race that's going to save us from brown people. I haven't heard anybody say that. Yeah. So I don't know where the hell this guy's. This is in his fantasy, just like liberals live in a fantasy world. There appears to be a division because Fox News is pumping us up this war thing. There's corporate interest, there's advertising interest, and there's it's just. Oh yeah, it makes great TV. Yeah, it does for them, and it'll keep you glued to the television. And I believe most people that are Trump supporters, most people that are conservatives, want nothing to do with another war. Not because we support Putin. Everyone's against the invasion. It's a terrible thing, but Fox News is portraying this thing that Putin's going to go after Poland next, which is a NATO ally. And that's completely out of nowhere, based on no reality at all. If he were to attack Poland, then we'd have another discussion because they're a NATO ally and it would have to be dealt with.
Now, he may go after some of these other, former Soviet areas that are not part of NATO, that are no longer part of the Russia, because the Soviet Union collapsed. But as long as he doesn't go after NATO, we got to stay out of this. I mean, we learned a lot. The war in Afghanistan, when 9/11 happened, there had to be a response. But the response that George W. Bush did was all wrong. Iraq was a complete lie about weapons of mass destruction. What's going on in Ukraine, I don't think any of us really know what's going on in Ukraine. There is so much propaganda.
There is on both sides
coming out of.
Let's be honest.
There's a lot of propaganda coming out from both sides, and Ukraine has a lot of propaganda coming out about how many planes they shot down. And I saw this morning online some Russian soldiers who were prisoners of war that the Ukrainians had, that they did this propaganda thing with. And the Ukrainians gave them iPhones, put them on speaker, and made them call their mothers and fathers and cry to them about how bad things were for the Russian army and all this stuff. There's propaganda going on both sides. These two nations are both bad. And, Russia is worse if they invaded another country and it wasn't provoked. But both of them are bad. And we have to get over this thing that there's two sides to every issue.
I think we need to stay out of it and stop assuming that he's going to invade Eastern Europe. I don't think it's going to happen. There's been zero indication. Now, if that happened, then obviously if he did, which I don't think it will, if he did invade Poland for whatever reason, then obviously we would have to get involved. Because that's a NATO ally, right? They're part of Europe and
they're part of the NATO alliance.
Part of the NATO alliance. And obviously, we'd have to protect them. But this, to me, I've always seen this more as a civil war. It's a war between this country that used to be part of Russia, and he sees it as them seceding from the country.
That's
and
right.
needs to bring them back. And that's how he sees it. And it says here in the New York Post that Putin has 3 conditions to stop the fighting. The first condition is Ukraine must cease trying to join NATO.
Okay.
The second, recognize Crimea, which Russia invaded in 2014 as part of Russia.
Now, slow down on that one. Crimea, it's at that little southern area of Ukraine. The Ukraine still today does not recognize that, even though Russia took it. So and Russia has it. They're not giving it back.
Right. So he wants them to recognize Crimea as part of Russia.
Not correct.
And acknowledge the independence of the 2 separatist areas in the Donbass region.
Okay, those are those 2.
And then he'd stop fighting them. That's what he wants.
Okay, those 2 areas that he's talking about are those ones that Putin carved out early on and said these are 2 new republics out of Ukraine. And that's fine with me.
So what's the issue? Why can't they just say, fine, let's do it,
I'll
let's
tell you,
end this?
This is the problem. We don't have a coherent president. And if we had a decent president, they would have a summit meeting, a major summit meeting with Russia, Ukraine, and the United States would broker it. I don't mean sending that blowhard John Kerry to bore everybody. I mean a real thing.
Yeah. Well, he thinks global warming is a bigger threat than this.
And they would handle this. Zelensky's asking for airplanes and all of this. I think those 3 terms are reasonable. Now, Russia and Ukraine are always going to be at each other's throats. This is going to go if Ukraine agreed to those conditions and the war was over today and everything else. And I know they had an agreement years ago that if they gave back their nukes, there'd be no aggression. And I know Russia's violated that. It still doesn't mean it's our business. But if this were settled with those 3 conditions, which Ukraine should agree to, because Zelensky is fighting a losing battle. The Russians are calling in ground forces from all over Russia to Ukraine. And Ukraine, I don't believe these stories about the great combat victories that we're hearing against the Russians. I'm not saying they haven't had any victories, but I think the Ukrainians are overplaying their victories a little bit.
Or he's lying to his people in the world.
Yeah, they're going to lose Ukraine because Russia is a major power. And the best they can hope for is to have some type of ground war occupation situation like we had in Iraq that went on for years during the era of the IEDs, and it's just going to be a disaster, and civilians are going to be killed. Zelensky should either agree to those 3 terms in this combat, in this war, have continued non-combat tensions with Russia for years to come, or surrender. So, that's it. They're outmatched.
One thing I do know is war is very profitable for Ukraine, and they're getting millions and millions and millions of dollars sent to them, donations from people, from our government, from Europe. They're raking in millions and millions of dollars because of this conflict. Is there corruption involved in there? Maybe. I don't know. Is he keeping things going because of that? That's something to think about. We do know that there's corruption in pretty much every government on the planet at some level, and we know there is corruption in the Ukraine. And I'm not saying that's what they're doing, but he's making a lot of money off this. And who knows where's that money going? Mm-hmm. The money that we're pouring into their country, the hundreds of millions of dollars they're getting now. They need help. Obviously, their cities are being destroyed. They have they have 1.5 million people that have left the country now. They're in Poland. People are donating and all this stuff, but it's profitable for him.
That's right. Now, listen, it is March, and we are 2 months away from Mother's Day, and that means you want to take advantage of these incredible deals going on right now at MyPillow.com when you use our promo code Kane. And there are great gifts at MyPillow.com that every mom would love. I'm just going to go through a couple, but there are many, many things here that you want to take advantage of now for Mother's Day for a couple of reasons. One, these specials are for a limited time that I'm going to go through right now. They may not be around when we get closer to Mother's Day. And right now, everything is in stock. Okay, as we get closer to Mother's Day, not everything may be in stock that's in stock today. They may start running out of certain sizes, certain colors, and things like this. Everything is in stock right now.
Yeah, that's a good time to buy.
Yeah, because Mike Lindell has restocked up since the Christmas holiday season, and now as we're moving into Mother's Day, the longer you wait, the more likely you are to not have the exact thing that you want now. And these deals, very well, many of them will not be around.
There's so many things that your mom would like. Here, the bathrobe, the slippers, get the combination of the bathrobe and the slippers, I think would be a fantastic, especially if you have an elderly mother, I think it'd be a fantastic gift. And if she doesn't live near you, you can have it shipped to her house directly and just let her know something's coming. You could do pillows. You can really, there's so many things on there your mom would love.
And remember, Mother's Day includes your mom, your grandmother, your wife.
Or your daughter, if your daughter's a mother.
That's correct. And the MyPillow bathrobes, they have styles for both men and women, many different colors, 30% off with our promo code Kane. The MyPillow slippers, multiple styles, multiple colors for men and women, including pink. 50% off the MyPillow, My Slippers with our promo code Kane at checkout, Kane. There are many other great specials there as well. You will definitely find something for your mom or the mother on your gift-giving list for Mother's Day. With our promo code Kane, Kane, save up to 66% off. So there's a lot of great deals. All right, we're going to take a break and be right back after this.
The search for the most dangerous book in the world is about to begin. From authors Wayne E. Haley and Sean P. Haley comes An Apology to Lucifer, now available for sale at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Apple Books, and on the book's official website, anapologytolucifer.com. In An Apology to Lucifer, Father Thomas Morelli thought he knew the story behind Lucifer's fall from heaven. However, upon making the acquaintance of renowned book authenticator Lorenzo Pellegrini and being invited to stay in the opulent Venice villa belonging to Pellegrini's master, Thomas discovers he has only heard part of the story. In Boston, psychoanalyst, best-selling author, and outspoken atheist David Wright has been tasked to handle the funeral arrangements of his dear friend Albert Kennedy. What could have driven this controversial exorcist to take his own life? The answer, it seems, is contained in a book that isn't supposed to exist. Joining forces, Lorenza, David, and Thomas must race against time to prevent an ancient battle from reigniting. If you enjoyed The Da Vinci Code, you will love this book, An Apology to Lucifer. The most anticipated supernatural thriller of 2022 is now available at BarnesandNoble.com, Amazon, Apple Books, and on the book's official website, anapologytolucifer.com. Order your copy right now. Have you wanted to learn how to make a living in real estate? Real estate can be intimidating, but with the right guidance, you can begin a successful real estate career. Shannon Robb Nett is a second-generation builder and developer, fourth-generation realtor with over 35 years experience in real estate. And on his podcast, Robb Nett's Real Estate Rundown, he shares his experience and knowledge with listeners. Listen to this clip from a recent episode.
And I've always been able to get people to help me bring that dream to life so that at the end of the day, what we're seeing happen is we're seeing a raw piece of land turn into a commercial investment that is of benefit to the whole community. And then out of that, we're able to create a significant upside for the investors in that development project. So after 12 or 14 months, those investors will receive, I don't want to brag, but over 35% return.
Shannon Robb Nett shares advice that's actionable on wholesaling, fix and flips, single family, multifamily, and more. Robb Nett's Real Estate Rundown is available on Apple Podcast, Stitcher, YouTube, Podchaser, and Spotify. Add Robb Nett's Real Estate Rundown to your playlist right now.
I never really consider myself to be creative, and the bigger picture is what matters to me the most.
And being a doctor ain't for everybody. And people get into it and they start it and then they realize, hey, this is not what I want.
For me, self-care is so about rigor in a lot of ways. Like, it is intense. American capitalism in the last couple of years has really co-opted what self-care looks like.
Join us on the Concrete Growth Project podcast with Shania Taylor, where stories are the seeds that cause others to grow.
You are listening to the Brian Craig Show podcast, broadcasting from sunny South Florida. Brian is joined by his wife and co-host, Kathy. Follow Brian on social media at briancraigshow.com. And now, Brian and Kathy.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Brian Craig, always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. You know, gas prices are through the roof. I paid over $4 a gallon today. And I know some of you in other parts of the country, it will be much more than that. But we have very low gas prices in Florida compared to other states. It was over $4 for regular unleaded.
We went by one today that we drove by 2 days ago. It's jumped 40 cents.
Yeah.
Just in 2 days. It's crazy. And let me tell you, this is not going to end anytime soon.
Worse. No.
Biden will do nothing about this. It's going to get up to probably $7, $8, maybe even $9, $10.
Well, it already has in some areas in California, and
they don't care.
You know, gas prices. You know, this thing about gas prices. Every American hates high gas prices, and
true.
High gas prices. I mean, it's a really. There's so much. You know, like we were talking in the first segment about this division about getting involved in Ukraine. There is nothing that brings Americans together as one than gas prices. In fact.
Except for George Takei.
No. Gas prices bring America together, and I know this sounds crazy. I was talking about this on the radio this morning. I know this sounds extreme, but it's true. High gas prices bring Americans together like only they were brought together after 9/11.
Yeah, I agree. That's something really, universally nobody likes.
No matter what someone's background is, they hate gas prices, unless they're a millionaire like George Takei who was griping, or a lot of liberals who live in New York City, where they don't own cars and they get around, there's public transportation and things like this. A lot of them don't have driver's license. They don't care because they don't feel the pump because they don't go to the gas station like regular people in the country do. And these high gas prices are going to continue to rise and rise and rise. The Biden administration is going to do nothing to stop it because they see this as an opportunity to get you in their green crap. And right. Kamala came out in a very bizarre statement today that she made. Listen to this. This is Kamala Harris.
Imagine a future. The freight trucks that deliver bread and milk to our grocery store shelves, and the buses that take children to school and parents to work. Imagine all the heavy-duty vehicles that keep our supply lines strong and allow our economy to grow. Imagine that they produced zero emissions. Well, you all imagined it. That's why we're here today. Because we have the ability to see what can be, unburdened by what has been, and then to make the possible actually happen.
Okay. Now, there's there's no way for things not to produce emissions and carbon. You got to. I told you this once, Kathy. A long time ago, before I knew Kathy, I interviewed Carl Sagan once on the radio. A long time ago, and I was very excited to interview Carl Sagan. And this was like 1993, 1994. It was not long before he died. I don't remember when he died, but he was obviously still alive. But this was like sometime between 91 and 94. I don't remember exactly what year. I wish I had this on tape because this would be golden. And it would really be interesting today because everyone respects Carl Sagan. And I don't know what Carl Sagan would be saying today about this renewable green stuff. But back then it was, Al Gore hadn't started his con yet. So he was giving real analysis. And he said all this talk about electric vehicles, he says, those vehicles have to be made in factories that have emissions. The energy to produce the electricity produces emissions. This idea that there's vehicles that are going to be made in the future that are totally without emission pollution is just, it's science fiction and it's never going to happen. That was Carl Sagan. And I wish I had that on tape because that would be like a viral video today if I had that. But, hey, it was live on the radio. And
there wasn't even any that we knew about any internet or YouTube back then.
No, we recorded.
No clue. I
recorded the interview on a cassette tape because we use those, and cassette tapes just don't last. I don't have it. But you hear Kamala Harris, she could give a darn that you cannot afford to fill your car up. Today, I went to the gas station today because I was on fumes and I was in a hurry and the gas pump was slow. So I didn't fill up the car. Okay. I did not fill up the car, not because of the price of gas. I wanted to, but I was taking our daughter somewhere and I was rushed. And I just put in, a little bit of gas so I don't run out. And it was $31, and I got in there. The tank was pretty low. It was less than half a tank. It was like a quarter of a tank or something. It was $31 and some change. I'm like, this is insane.
Yeah.
And Kathy got me a 150cc motor scooter for our wedding anniversary this year.
Last year.
Well, it was like
December.
3 months ago. Well, I guess last year.
Yeah, technically.
But 3 months ago. But and I just use it really to ride around the neighborhood, or sometimes I go down to the beach. And I'm going to start driving it to work in the morning instead of my car because I don't know how many miles per gallon it gets, but it gets me pretty far.
I think like 50,
60 miles a gallon.
There, yeah.
And it only holds a gallon of gas.
Right.
So, it's not meant for long range driving. You got to stop at a lot of gas stations,
Yeah, that's true.
But it saves a lot of money.
Kamala talks to people like they're 5 years old.
Yeah,
you notice that about her. She's extremely condescending and just is a horrible communicator. Biden, these two, she talks to you like you're 5, and he whispers to people. He's a whisperer, which is weird. They really are two strange cats when it comes to communication.
Yeah, they are weirdos.
They just can't talk to you like you're an adult with a brain in your head. They've got to talk down to you like, get vaccinated. Remember when he did that? And then she's like, okay, boys and girls, the Ukraine is in Europe and it's being attacked by a larger country called Russia. I mean, these people have zero respect.
They're out of their minds.
For us. They have zero respect for what we go through. They're completely out of touch. You have George Takei and other people complaining about us because we're upset about the gas prices. These are people that have no clue, nor do they want to know how hard life can be and what life is really like for the average Americans. Yet they want you to keep voting for them and keep them in power when they have just nothing but disdain for you.
The thing with Kamala Harris, okay, Willie Brown's girlfriend, everybody, knows what kind of person she is. And she's always thought she was brilliant because these guys that she has around.
She's a moron.
Put up with her. If you went to Hooters, okay, and
you'd find a smarter girl.
The Hooters girls come up to a guy who's with his buddies and they're at Hooters and she starts talking. The guys act like she's brilliant and has a great outlook on things. They really, you know why they act that way. And that's what's gone on with Kamala her whole life.
Yeah.
Guys.
She is no Hooters girl.
The minute, but she's, kind of
come
bimbo.
On, let's be real here.
Willie Brown's girlfriend.
Not even close.
She was openly dating a married man, okay? It's So the men that she was around only cared about one thing with Kamala, and they let her think that she was brilliant and intelligent, and now she's there. But I'll tell you this. You know, I was talking about Carl Sagan. You know, Carl Sagan wasn't just a brilliant mind. He was also like a futurist, like an Arthur C. Clarke, a futurist who could see the future. And futurists are kind of like, you know, they're like philosophers that people have respect. And President Trump is a futurist as well. This is President Trump on the campaign trail in the last election when he was running against Joe Biden. And he talked about what would happen to gas prices if Biden got in.
We have more oil than anybody, okay? And it's an incredible thing that it's happened over the last few years, a lot of great things, and you're paying, what, $2 a gallon for your gasoline? That's okay. You know what that's like? That's like a tax cut. That's bigger than a tax cut. If Biden got in, you'd be paying $7, $8, $9. Didn't they say, get rid of your car?
Prices at some local gas stations, they're way above the average. Well, across the street from the Beverly Center, one of the most expensive places in L.A., drivers are paying this, nearly $7 for regular unleaded, nearly $8 for premium. Drivers said they were surprised and not in a good way.
Yeah, just under $8 for super unleaded there in California. So Trump is a futurist. And again, right on the money. And I got to tell you that the gas prices, you know, Mayor Pete and Kamala and John Kerry and Joe Biden and Jen Psaki can sit around all day and say, well, you know, you got to get into the alternative.
These are people that don't fill up a tank.
No, we fill up their tank.
They don't fill up a tank at all. They have no idea. They just sit in the car on their phone with a limo driver or a driver. And even at Fox News, I remember Julie Banderas, she used to be on Periscope all the time. And she would have Periscope on while she was on the air on Fox.
Yeah.
And she went into Judge Jeanine while she was getting her makeup done with her hair in rollers. Yeah. That was hilarious live. But anyway, one day she did a broadcast and she took the phone with her live through the whole thing when she was going home. She didn't take it to her apartment, but she got in a limo at the end, and the limo driver took her. She said, at Fox, we have drivers that take us to and from work.
Yeah.
So people in the media do not drive cars, especially New York City. They don't own cars unless they take a train out to the Hamptons.
And on the weekends.
Or fly planes. Yeah. But I bet most of them don't even own cars.
Yeah.
They don't even stop at a gas station unless the limo driver, he fuels up before they even picks them up. Well, I mean, they probably haven't even gone to a gas station in decades.
What we're seeing with the government right now, you know, the Jen Psaki's, I'm talking about the White House, you know, thinking that, being all snarky about the gas prices. Well, this is a great opportunity to get a car that's power. Even Elon Musk says we need to drill for more oil, and he makes the Tesla electric car. You know, Elon Musk could very easily say, well, this is a great time to buy a Tesla. And he said, drill, baby, drill.
Right.
So you know,
he's not an opportunist like them.
We have never had leadership in the United States that was so out of touch with the pulse and feeling and suffering and emotions of the American people like these people.
It's not just being out of touch. It's pure contempt that they have for the American people. We get in the way. We're getting in their way. And they have to come out and in their mind, they have to come out and babysit us and coddle us and calm us down while they do their crap on the side that we're not supposed to be bothered with. You know what I mean? We're in the way for these people.
Now, I want to take a moment to thank our Patreon supporters for their support of the program. Thank you so much, everyone. And our top Patreon supporters get a live on-air thank you on each and every episode. So the names you are about to hear are our top Patreon supporters. I want to thank Andrew and Connie, Christine, Gary, ETW, Chuck, Dee, Pamela, Jacqueline, Rick, Rich, and Nick. These are our top Patreon supporters. Thank you so much, everyone. And, you know, as I was saying earlier at the top of the show, except for Saturday when I uploaded the wrong show, Patreon supporters get commercial-free editions of each and every podcast episode. And there are other perks as well. If you would like to become a Patreon supporter, there is a link in the description of this and every episode, as well as a direct link on my website, briancraigshow.com. Barr, who's been out there trashing Trump the last few days.
Because he's got a book coming out. He's got a book to sell.
He
wants to make his millions.
Yeah, now today he's saying that he'll support President Trump in 2024 if he's the Republican nominee.
He's all over the place.
You know, that is amazing. That tells you he's gotten a lot of negative feedback from his Trump trashing over the weekend.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And he's walked that back. But a lot of people, you know, Barr never was a Trump supporter. A lot of people don't understand this. Barr was never with Trump. He was brought in to end the Mueller investigation. He was Attorney General before, and he's a Republican establishment guy. And one of his best friends was Robert Mueller. And Robert Mueller had this investigation. It went on for a couple years. They found nothing, and Mueller couldn't figure out how to get out of it without looking like a fool. So they brought in Barr as the Attorney General so that he could end Mueller's suffering and get the Mueller investigation over with. That's the only reason he was Attorney General. So when a lot of people are saying, oh, well, Barr has turned his back on Trump. He had his back turned on Trump on day one. He never was with Trump.
No. I think a lot of people that were in the White House went in with their back turned to Trump. I don't think there was really many people he could trust.
Well, that's for sure.
At all.
He can trust us, though.
Yes. Well, yeah, the people, of course.
Yeah, not this weekend, but next weekend on the 19th is when I'm going to see President Trump.
Oh, that'll be nice.
And I'm really excited about that.
Yes.
That's at the
That's Emily's birthday.
I am going with my I'm going on my daughter's birthday to see Trump. And there was another event on her birthday last year or the year before, and I didn't go because of her birthday. So I asked her for permission to go to this one. And this one's a private ticketed event, so it's not like a regular rally.
It'll be interesting to see how it's different, if at all, because you've been to two rallies. Both of them were outside, right? And one was outside, one was
I went to one rally that was in this venue.
So I'm interested to see the difference between this and a rally. Just the vibe and how the audience is.
Well, it's the American Freedom Tour, and it's ticketed. You buy tickets, and the tickets are not that expensive, but do not buy the least expensive tickets. The least expensive tickets do not get you a seat in the room where the president will be speaking. You're in an overflow room, it says. And you catch that in the small print, so I want to make sure I tell people that. But the tickets are very affordable, and it's the American Freedom Tour, and this is the Fort Lauderdale one I'm going to be at. So if
you want to spend a lot of money, you can meet Don Jr.
It's $3,000 to meet Don Jr.
But I tell Brian, for $3,000, you should meet Trump for that kind of money. I mean, I love Don Jr., but for $3,000, you should get to meet Donald Trump himself.
Yeah,
because that $3,000 is a lot.
That's a lot of money. But that's the top tier ticket. There are tickets that are much more affordable, and everybody that buys a ticket gets a seat. Unlike a Trump rally, where people are packed in, standing up for hours and hours and hours.
I guess it's too big of a security issue with the president.
Well, I'm going to
have people come in and meet him personally.
I'm going to make a vlog of as much of it as I can for my YouTube channel. There may be some limitations on where you're allowed to film and things because it's a private event, not like a regular rally. But I am going to make a vlog for my YouTube channel so you guys can see it. I'm imagining it's going to be a lot like a Trump rally with just fewer people in it because it's a ticketed event with seats as opposed to having to stand up. And I imagine outside the venue, there's going to be a lot of people outside waiting to see President Trump. I'm guessing, it's a bit of a drive from Mar-a-Lago. I'm guessing he'll fly in from Mar-a-Lago on his helicopter. I don't think he'll be driving there.
Yeah, because it's about from Mar-a-Lago to the Panther Arena. I would say it's about an hour away. Because it's in Broward County.
Yeah, well, he has a police escort, and they clear the lights
will
for
fly
him.
In,
So, but I still think he'll fly in. And
that's how he rolls.
Now, when he and he'll probably fly over our house. And since I will be there, I will miss it.
Yeah.
But when President Trump in the past would fly to that area from Mar-a-Lago, he would fly over our house in Marine One.
Yeah.
And it would shake the whole house because when Marine One flies over, you don't see this on television, but they have like a Marine Combat Helicopter Squadron escort for Marine One.
Yeah.
And these are the biggest helicopters I have ever seen in my life that would surround Marine One. Plus, they have two Marine Ones that fly up there at the same time, and the whole house would vibrate and shake like an earthquake.
What was that one time where from the Homestead Air Force Base something happened, and they had two fighter jets flew from Homestead, Miami, to Mar-a-Lago, and they flew right over our house, and literally it knocked things off our walls.
A plane, this was when Trump was first president, a plane flew in restricted airspace near Mar-a-Lago, and they scrambled two fighter jets from Homestead Air Force Base down in Dade County, and they did something they don't do very often. They flew supersonic speed over residential areas,
yes,
which they don't do, and they flew low. And
the whole house shook.
Not only did the whole house shake, a bunch of stuff in our garage fell down.
That's right. pretty cool.
And it was pretty crazy. I
It was loud, too.
You felt it when they came over.
You're like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah.
It was like an earthquake, but we don't have earthquakes in Florida.
Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing President Trump at the event because, it's been a while. I haven't seen President Trump with my own eyes.
It has been a while.
In a year.
Well, you saw him at President's Day in the limo.
That was a year ago.
Yeah, that was the last time
I saw him. Was
he
a year
waved
ago.
at you guys.
I was 5 feet away from President
that was
Trump.
Pretty exciting.
And he looks different in person than on TV. He's bigger. He's a bigger man.
Taller, wider. What do you mean by bigger?
His head is bigger than you think.
He's like 6'4". He's not a small guy.
No, his head is bigger than you think. His hands are bigger. His teeth are bigger. And one thing about President Trump in person, and this is something I've noticed, and those of you that have seen President Trump in person, you can let me know if you have this experience. But I believe his voice is deeper in person. It sounds deeper than it does when you're watching him on television. It's deeper in person. Why that is, I don't know, but I'm looking forward to seeing him on the 19th. Listen, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, there's a lot more to talk about. Do not go anywhere. I'm Brian Craig, always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. Back right after this.
Looking for a great podcast to listen to on your drive home from work? The Blah Blah Bunker is a podcast that features interviews with regular people who have extraordinary stories to tell. Host Almar Himerson is one of them. In 25 years, he's gone from Icelandic lawyer and airline CEO to tattooed, bearded meat enthusiast with a startup in Central Europe. On the way, he's made plenty of stops and cultivated a habit of running into interesting people and asking them interesting questions. Nothing is off limits in the Blah Blah Bunker, and Almar may ask questions that most people wouldn't dare to ask. He interviews all kinds of people of diverse nationalities from all over the planet who are gambling experts, professional athletes, psychics, therapists, NASDAQ CEOs, singers, entertainers, and more. It's an eclectic show that features interesting people you will want to listen to. Check it out right now. The Blah Blah Bunker, available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast. Add the Blah Blah Bunker to your playlist right now. A Boston nonprofit organization has designed a brand called Value that will give partial proceeds of all sales towards spinal cord injury research to a local lab in one of the world's best rehab facilities. Value was founded by a sister who is the CEO and inspired by her brother who was recently claimed a paraplegic in a tragic accident. Wearing a piece of research feels different than regular clothing. CEO and founder Nichelle Champa. Value is an online, simple clothing store. The website is valueco.shop. And on Instagram at valueco.shop. There's no doubt, today more than ever, we all need a little uplifting. Times are scary, and the world can seem lonely and frightening, but God is always present. God loves us and wants us to know He is here and always there when we need Him. The Warriors for Christ podcast seeks to uplift, edify, and encourage you to be the light and salt in a dark and tasteless world. They have new episodes weekly. Be sure to subscribe and share the Warriors for Christ podcast with your friends and family. Find the Warriors for Christ podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Player FM, Stitcher, Deezer, Amazon Podcast, and on their website, warriorsforchrist.podomatic.net. That's the number 4, warriorsforchrist.podomatic.net. Warriors for Christ, letting the Bible speak and teach for itself.
You are listening to the Brian Craig Show podcast, broadcasting from sunny South Florida. Brian is joined by his wife and co-host, Kathy. Follow Brian on social media at briancraigshow.com. And now, Brian and Kathy.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Brian Craig, always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. Okay, so Mayor Pete, who is being groomed, believe it or not, to be president in states one day. I mean, Secretary of Transportation is a job that they give to someone that they owe favors to. They don't want to really give them anything. And the transportation secretary usually is a do-nothing seat filler of a cabinet post.
I think they gave this to him for those, I don't know what favors he did, but they were appeasing, the gay community, basically saying, oh, look what we did for you.
Yeah. But this has probably been the most disastrous time for the transportation department with gas, supply chain, and everything. And to have this incompetent pothole Pete who was failed mayor of a tiny little town, sitting back doing nothing's ridiculous. So he came out today.
It is ridiculous.
Yeah, and had a press conference, and he's talking about gas prices. This goes back to what we were talking about in the last segment about how this administration is the most out-of-touch administration in the history of presidential administrations.
Clean transportation can bring significant cost savings for the American people as well. Last month, we announced a $5 billion investment to build out a nationwide electric vehicle charging network so that people from rural to suburban to urban communities can all benefit from the gas savings of driving an EV.
Okay, an EV, they got names now, EV, electric vehicle EV. That's how much they're into it. They got nicknames and things like this. Here's the thing, okay? A decent electric vehicle, like he's talking about for the whole family, $30,000, $50,000, and even more. People can't afford that.
No, especially now because prices of cars have gone even more, even higher because now they've added this new tax that what's the name they're calling it? The shortage or some market value. Even Elon Musk, who owns Tesla, has told the politicians to open the pipelines and let people buy gas that's made here. And he owns the company that makes the most popular e-car or electric vehicles.
And public transportation works in certain areas. It does not work all over the place. Like here in Florida, we're a suburban community.
Yeah.
And public transportation takes hours and hours. And so far as the electric cars, this morning I stopped by Wawa this morning to clean the windows on my car. Wawa is a gas station convenience store. A lot of you know about Wawa. And there was this guy who was sitting in the parking lot, and I couldn't figure out what he was doing. And he was sitting there. It was dark. Mm-hmm. It was about 5:30 in the morning, and he had his door open.
Oh, my goodness.
And he was putzing around inside the car and sitting there going through. And I couldn't – and it was kind of creepy. I didn't know what he was doing. And then I was looking and looking. He was plugged into the charging station. He has an electric car and a Tesla. And he was sitting there for God knows how long charging his Tesla while people were getting gas and just in and out, in and out, in and out. And
they really think that the whole country is just going to make a massive shift in a matter of months, that everybody's just going to go out and buy a $50,000 car. People can't even afford to buy milk. I mean, what the hell is wrong with these people? They can't even afford anything, and they want them to go out. How about the government? They're spending money. They can buy everybody a freaking Tesla.
Well, in Mayor Pete's world, everyone's rich and can just go out and buy a Tesla. I wouldn't mind having a Tesla. They seem kind of cool. Our brother-in-law has a Tesla, and it seems like a disastrous of a vehicle. I love Elon Musk.
I know what we can do. This will solve the problem. We can get a big SUV and put our bicycles in the back, and the SUV can drive us a block away from where we need to go, and then we get out and ride our bike to our destination.
Yeah, whatever, Mayor Pete.
That's what he does.
And the thing with Mayor Pete, when he makes an idiotic comment like that, he thinks he's brilliant. Now, I wanted to share this, and I wasn't going to, but I'm not pleased with what I'm seeing online. Huffington posted a story on this. He's been trending on Twitter, and everyone's making fun of him. And I got to stand up for Ricky Schroeder. And, Ricky Schroeder, if you're our generation, Generation X, you grew up with Ricky Schroeder.
Great actor.
And I remember in the theater seeing him in The Champ with John Voight, which was just god-awful sad.
I cried.
Yeah, everybody did.
I cried so much.
And when Ricky Schroeder was on Silver Spoons, I just thought he was the coolest dude there was with the coolest clothes. And, I had on more than one occasion a shirt that I got that I was wearing back then that I saw Ricky Schroeder wearing on Silver Spoons.
Yeah.
So and then
he was on NYPD Blue.
Yeah, and he was incredible on NYPD Blue. And they hate Ricky Schroeder because he's a conservative. And he's been a conservative Republican his entire life. I've seen him in the 90s. He was at the Republican conventions. He was mentored by William Holden, who was a big conservative actor. You guys remember William Holden?
Oh, yeah.
And
Wasn't he in Sunset Boulevard?
Mm-hmm, yeah, that's him. And Ricky Schroeder's been a strong Second Amendment supporter and just a very outspoken conservative his entire life. And now he's getting involved in a lot of these activist things like the truckers.
Plus, he helped Kyle Rittenhouse.
Mm-hmm. And he went to the Presidential Museum of General Eisenhower, and he was turned away because he was not wearing a mask. And Ricky Schroeder, this is why he's trending on Twitter, and Huffington Post is making fun of the great Ricky Schroeder, who's he's an American icon. I got a lot of respect for this guy.
Yeah, he is.
I love Ricky Schroeder. I'd love to meet him. And Ricky Schroeder recorded what I'm about to play for you on his cell phone and uploaded it online. So this is video courtesy of little Ricky Schroeder, who's not so little anymore.
It's now Rick Schroeder.
No, he calls himself Ricky in this video.
Oh.
He told him.
Well, that's how everybody knows him, I guess, is Ricky Schroeder.
He introduces himself to the security guard as Ricky Schroeder. He's over that Rick thing, I guess. Did he try to be Rick Schroeder for a while when he was on
He did.
You know, when he was on NYPD Blue, he was very, very good. It was Ricky Schroeder in a way I've not seen. And spoiler alert, from this 20-year-old television series he was on, they killed him off. And he was murdered in an undercover op, and they found Ricky Schroeder, and this was an NYPD Blue. They found his body wrapped up in a rug along the river, and I was very dramatic. I love that show, NYPD Blue. It was a great show. But anyway, so this is little Ricky Schroeder showing up at the Eisenhower Museum without a mask. He's turned away, and he makes some very good points that if General Eisenhower were here to see this, I think would agree with a lot of this.
Masks are required. Sir, I don't make the rules, sir. I just have to enforce. So we're at the Eisenhower Museum, and I can't visit. My name's Ricky Schroeder. I drove over here to visit.
He's out of breath.
And you're telling me you can't come in? I can't come into.
Yeah, when did Ricky Schroeder get a Southern accent?
I was thinking the same because he's from New York. He used to have remember on Silver Spoons, he had a New York accent.
And in The Champ, too.
Yeah, he's a New Yorker. I guess he lives in the South, but all of a sudden he's a good old boy.
Does he live in Wyoming or something now?
I think so. He might live in Montana or somewhere. Yeah. We have to find out because, all of a sudden he's got a Southern accent.
Well, all of a sudden that's because we haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah.
Masks are required. Sir, I don't make the rules, sir. I just have to enforce. So we're at the Eisenhower Museum. And I can't visit. My name's Ricky Schroeder. I drove over here to visit. And you're telling me you can't come in? I can't come into this museum without a mask. Without a mask. Whose rule is this? It's the National Archives and Record Administration's rules. It's the federal government's rules. Yes. Evil federal government. Right? That's your opinion. That is my opinion.
You know, this is really
that's crazy.
This is, I love this with Ricky Schroeder. Ricky Schroeder, I've seen him and followed him a little bit closer than it sounds. He started acting at an early age. Oh, yeah. He is very wealthy, and he just doesn't care anymore. He has that FU money.
Yeah.
So, he's given up on Hollywood because they're not going to hire some conservative in woke Hollywood these days. And he's out there telling it like it is. Now, this security guard he's talking about has called in backup. And these are armed security guards. They have pistols that he's talking to.
God's laws are higher than the federal government's. But you're going to enforce man's laws. Yes, we are. Not God's laws. Correct, sir. I don't know if it's God's law or man's law. All I know, it's our boss. That's right. You don't know God. God bless. God bless.
Okay, now Ricky Schroeder is walking out of the museum.
He's pissed.
And he's going to walk outside. Now, this is President Eisenhower's Presidential Museum, so he's going to walk out and have a conversation. It's pretty amazing. The security guard doesn't even say, like, oh, wow, Ricky Schroeder, because he's, the security guard is the right age. He knows, he watched Silver Spoons.
Oh, he knows who he is.
Yeah, he knows exactly who he is.
Yeah.
But, the government workers, especially federal government workers, very liberal.
It's not his fault. It's his job. And he's just
He could have explained that to him.
I thought he was okay. He wasn't rude to Ricky Schroeder.
He called for backup.
Oh, I didn't see that part.
For little Ricky Schroeder.
What did he say, call for backup?
Well, you can see the guy came up behind him and he had a gun.
But he didn't call for backup. He signaled
to the guy with his head.
Well,
he was like a physical,
I didn't see that part. Yeah. That's a little crazy.
Dwight D. Eisenhower, the man who defeated the Nazis, and you've become one.
Wow. That's a beautiful museum.
Walking outside.
Presidential museums are really nice. We've been to...
Well, folks, you see what happened? The federal government said I can't go into the Dwight D. Eisenhower Museum.
He's got a beard.
That's his boyhood home.
Oh, wow.
That's his library. The man who defeated the Nazis. And look what's become of our country. The man who fought the Nazis. God bless the United States of America. God bless this movement. In Jesus' name, we need to fight for freedom again. Amen.
Well, I was pretty impressed with Ricky Schroeder, and he's a good Christian,
He kind
too.
of looks like Randy Quaid a little bit. They both got the beard, but he's right. It's ridiculous. And, we pay for these federal buildings. We pay for these guys' salaries, and there should not be a mask mandate anymore. I mean, COVID has dropped. The numbers have dropped drastically. I read in Florida 90% from a month ago. They're basically saying it's the endemic. So I don't know when they're going to lift these mask mandates, but at this point, it should be optional. If you want to wear one, go for it. They even came out with a big study last week that they don't do anything.
Listen, I know a lot of people like to wear them. I see them around town. That's fine. If you want to wear them, wear them. But I think we're at a point now where we're kind of beyond that, and so far as Ricky Schroeder made a very, very good point here. And I just want to highlight it a little bit.
It's our dog clacking. If you hear clacking, our dog Nina in the background.
Ricky Schroeder made a very good point here. I just want to highlight a little bit about the Nazis and everything. Now, obviously, this security guard at the Eisenhower Museum is not a Nazi. But what Ricky Schroeder is talking about is something that we've all talked about in the last year or two, is that when you see law enforcement, oftentimes in these liberal areas, the Capitol Police, the security guard here, and you've seen some incidents with police over the last couple of years. This is how the Holocaust happened. You have governments come in, they limit freedoms dramatically, they have all kinds of requirements, and civil authority, police, and other people that work for the government, from meter maids to restaurant health inspectors, this is how the Holocaust happened, by them going along with these unjust rules. And I don't want to compare what's going on to the Holocaust, but the Nazis said we were just following orders, and the Nuremberg courts ruled that you were not obliged to follow unlawful orders, and and that's not a defense. And it's time for that's why this trucker convoy that's going on right now in Washington, D.C. is so important. And what the mainstream politicians will never get accustomed to, it's been going on since 2010 during the Obamacare debate. We're 12 years into this. Conservatives for the last 12 years have for the first time organized and protested and demonstrated.
They don't like that at
for
all.
Rights and freedoms. And they will not accept a conservative's right to have a grievance and to organize and protest. And not just liberals have a right to protest. Everyone in this country has a right to speak up and protest, as long as it's a peaceful protest. And
you just can't do it in Canada
or the United States these days. I mean, they just won't accept that concept that conservatives ever have grievances. They've decided that conservatives are descendants of slave owners and have been running the country forever, and we should have no voice in this country any longer.
Yeah, it's really interesting how people rewrite history and how the liberals rewrite it. And I'm not saying history was perfect, but the image they're painting for you, a lot of it is not the whole picture, obviously. They just hone in and focus in on one thing. An interesting thing was trending on, before you get to that next story, on Twitter today. I regret voting for Joe Biden.
Oh.
And a lot of people were tweeting it and saying why. So I want to know, if you are listening and you voted for Joe Biden and you regret voting for Joe Biden, come out. You can tell us why in the comments, why that you voted for him and why you regret voting for him now. I'd really like to know. And we have polls and things to comment on in the community section of our YouTube channel. For Brian Craig. Is Brian Craig or Brian Craig show? Brian Craig,
Brian
right?
Craig on YouTube.
Brian Craig on YouTube. We had a poll today about what's going on in Russia, and then we have some on the gas things, stuff like that. Anyway, we like to hear back from you guys about that. If you voted for Joe Biden, you regret it, tell us why. I mean, there's so many things to choose from.
Now, I just want to talk about this last thing briefly. I talked about this on my YouTube live stream on Saturday and got some really negative feedback from ladies. Okay, now Max from Dancing with the Stars, dancer.
Yes.
Okay, he's Ukrainian.
He's handsome.
Yeah, he's Ukrainian. He was in Ukraine when the Russian invasion began, and he got out and he left on a train filled with women and children. He was the only man, except maybe for the engineer, although they may have a lady engineer, because they're not letting men leave Ukraine. In fact, men that are not even Ukrainian are not being permitted to leave. They're only allowing, and Max got out and he gave an interview to ABC and he said he felt kind of cowardly. And I got to tell you, he looks like a coward. And Max, what he's was doing here was pretty obvious. He's not on Dancing with the Stars anymore. No. And he thought that he could ride this Ukrainian wave and get back on Dancing with the Stars, maybe hired as a judge. I like him. He was on. We used to watch the show years ago when Tom Bergeron was on. I won't watch it without Tom Bergeron.
I will say this, because I used to watch it before Tyra Banks, who is awful. I watched it religiously. And Max, he was the oldest of him and this guy Tony were the two oldest. And I could tell, and Max, I think, is a smoker. But so is Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly. But I could tell the last season or two, he was having trouble keeping up, even with his partner. And the partners are not professional. And he was like really out of breath and struggling and having injuries. So, as you get older, it's difficult. He's in his 40s. But I don't know. And his brother, Val, is from the Ukraine. And they haven't given him a hard time. But he didn't leave on a train. He was here in the States, but I don't know why he did that interview. I'm sure he's regretting it now.
Well, he does look like a coward, and I don't think he should be over here being paraded around as some spokesman for anything. I know he's an American citizen now. I understand, and some ladies wrote me some messages. I guess they have a thing for Max that I'm giving him too hard of a time. That he's a U.S. citizen now. Listen, I'm not saying that he should take up arms and fight the Russians. I mean, it's his country. Maybe he should. But he could at least have gone to Poland and helped with the relief effort for Ukrainians coming, not come out to Hollywood and try to get back on TV and do TV interviews and try to get some fame going. He does look like a coward. And I bring this up because I am opposed to any U.S. I'm opposed to what Russia did, but I'm opposed to any U.S. involvement at all in the Ukraine-Russian conflict. Yeah. And if a Ukrainian guy like Max here from Dancing with the Stars is getting out of Dodge, why should we be over there fighting for the country when he's not?
Yeah, and he was giving Kirstie Alley a hard time a week or so ago because she tweeted something up to how we shouldn't get involved in all this stuff. And he was really upset. They were on Dancing with the Stars together. That was his partner twice, two seasons. And he said, this was a couple weeks ago. I guess he was still in Ukraine. And he said, this is my countrymen and they're dying and blah, 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 blah. Look, he's got a baby. He's got like a 3 or 4 year old son who's very cute, or 5-year-old son, whatever. But a lot of people have kids. His wife's here. She's beautiful. She was a dancer. I understand he wants to come home, but I agree with you. He could have stayed and helped in some capacity instead of coming over here and complaining how we're not doing enough. If he's not willing, maybe he's too old for the army. Maybe he's like 45. Maybe they don't want him.
They're taking
he could
guys,
do something.
They're taking guys in their 60s over there.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind. I knew. There's a new thing trending. I just looked. Impeach Biden.
Yeah,
is trending on Twitter.
That's
I'll have to check out and see what that's all about.
Well, that sounds like a good idea.
I think that between that and I regretted voting for Biden earlier today. I think there's a theme going on here on Twitter today where people are not happy, and I have a feeling it has to do with gas prices because I noticed today we drove by this gas station that we drove by 2 days ago. The price is up 40 cents in 2 days. Not only are the prices higher than they have been in a long time, because under George Bush they were pretty high, it is the prices are going up so fast. And also we had one of our Marco members told us that gas went up like 50 cents since yesterday in Michigan. It's increasing so quickly, it's jarring. people are looking like, holy crap, it was $4 yesterday. Now it's $4.50 today. What's it going to be tomorrow? I mean, it's nuts.
Yeah, and you really should fill up on your way to work because when you get off work, it's going to be higher.
That's true. That's true.
Well, listen, we're all out of time, but we'll be back with you next time. I'm Brian Craig, always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. Thanks for listening.
There are just so many hours in the day, so you should fill as many of them as you can with knowledge and information that can better your life. HerBackPocket.com is a website that brings knowledge into one place with books like How to Write a Highly Effective Business Plan, A Joyful Journey to Financial Freedom, The Importance of Solitude for a Balanced Life. There are books on dieting, working out, and earning extra money in your spare time too. HerBackPocket.com has all kinds of ebooks filled with all kinds of valuable information you will want to know, like building your credit, looking to better your health, making extra money, side hustles, learning to budget realistically. HerBackPocket.com will make you feel motivated, maybe even change your mind and perspective on things that you're doing, and learn how to apply things to make your lives better. What are you waiting for? Start shopping right now. HerBackPocket.com. Share the link on all of your social media. HerBackPocket.com.